And from the last 18 months, we've completed some audits. We've had conversations about our buildings, the condition of those buildings, the needs of those buildings, whether in terms of replacement cycles with carpeting and paint and cement, concrete, and all those things. And are they serving our students at the level necessary for excellence? Because that's what we're chasing. We really believe in excellence. We're proud of West Des Moines Community Schools, and we want to make sure that our facilities meet the standards and the needs of the students and the parents. We've anchored all of our work into the desired daily experiences as part of our strategic plan. And I hope you took that survey with us about a year ago as we developed that. What are your expectations as a parent, our students' expectations, and our teachers' expectations? So with that, we're thinking about our future. What does the next 30 years look like for the West Des Moines Community Schools as it relates to our facilities? What we learned during that audit, and I jokingly say there's a country western song, there's more month than money. What we noticed is just the general upkeep and what we needed in order to maintain our buildings and get them back to that standard and functionality that's expected, and launch ourselves into the future, right, to 2040, 2050, that we were not going to be able to do that without considering a bond referendum. So on July 9th, and Lila Starr, thank you so much for being here, representing the board. They looked at me and they said, Mr. Superintendent, we want a bond referendum in November of 2025. And I said, absolutely. Well, let's start talking to our community. This is a blank slate. I need your help in giving feedback as it relates to what your expectations would be around the school district. So we're building this future together. Again, like I said, we're here just to listen. We did do a community survey, and I was pretty proud of the engagement of our community, particularly the timeline, June 27th through July 7th. Summertime, when you're busy with baseball, softball, going to the pool and fishing and Adventureland. So nearly 2,500 people interacting with us and engaging with us was awesome. We had about a little over 1,800 people that have children right here in the district, which is great, and 1,300 that reside within our boundaries. That could be teachers or community members. We were really appreciative of our N, and we got a lot of data that we started to kind of digest. This was the $64,000 question that the board really needed to answer at the last board meeting. Is there evidence that would suggest that the community has an appetite for a bond referendum, particularly in November of 2025? Here's what we learned. Not nearly, but 74% of the respondents said we're very likely or somewhat likely to support a bond referendum. That told us, with 2,500 engaging with us, 74% saying, let's make these schools the best possible schools in the metro area, then this is probably something that we need to move forward with. And so we've elected to do that. We've enlisted the help of some architects. We're trying to get as much community input as we possibly can as we just kind of continue to move forward. You might be asking yourself, because I did the same thing, and I love to anchor and ground into research. If you're wondering, hey, can upgrading a building facility, making it to a new standard, actually contribute to improve student outcomes? The answer is yes. The research says the answer is yes. This was what was kind of interesting when I did some research on it. I can categorize it with one sentence because I think you want to know this too. It says, in this research article, it said the conclusions build on a growing body of evidence asserting that higher quality school buildings translate to better academic outcomes for children, and this was kind of a sideline deal, higher property values for the communities that surround the improved facilities. So the facilities can actually impact. For instance, better HVAC systems, better quality air, better temperature control, better lighting actually has an impact. There's so many ways that a facility can contribute to outcomes by not causing distractions and whatnot. So if you were wondering that, because I wondered that, the research is out there for that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Zipkins. Okay.
Tim Simpkins, Director of Operations, and I think everything we do anchors back to the desired daily experience from the strategic plan. And our goal is that every student who enters our learning spaces believes they'll have a positive and educational experience. And I think that also goes for our teachers. Our goal here would be every teacher every student walks into the same similar classroom every day when they go, whether they're at Crestview or Hillside or Valley. I want our elementary schools to feel like an elementary school. I want our middle schools to feel like a middle school, and I want our high schools to feel like a high school, and I want us all to have that Tiger pride no matter what building we go into. So this was a remodel of a room at Valley we did last summer. It was a tiered room. It didn't function real well for today's learning environment, and we went in here and had a lot of flexible furniture, and it turned out to be a real nice room, and it kind of set a standard for what we want to do at Valley. Next slide. Well, that's Kurt's got it. Here's an older kindergarten room, and we do have some rooms to base our standard on because we do have some brand new classrooms at Clarissa. We have some brand new classrooms at Clive. The architect team that's on board with us has already started going through the buildings to a little deeper dive in the buildings on how we can get all these classrooms to be the similar classroom out throughout the district. And so we had a standard. We put a group of educators together, a group of people from the administrators together, and we went out and kind of analyzed these and set the standard for the goal we're trying to achieve.
All right, you want to take it? Good evening. I'm Kurt Subre. I serve as the CFO here at West Des Moines Schools. Thanks for coming tonight. We are going to start with about a 3 or 4 minute video that was created prior to this process, but we're going to leverage some work that had already been done just to give a real quick overview of school finance in Iowa. So that's should be on this next slide. Here we go. I'm not sure. Here we go. Just have a few slides we're going to go through just to kind of follow up on what the video had to say and give you just a brief introduction to what our kind of baseline information looks like here at West Des Moines Schools. So as you can see here, we've compared our property tax rate. Why we focus on the property tax rates? Because that's how that's where the bond issue would fall in to play. It would be part of the tax rate going forward. So as you can see here, West Des Moines amongst the metro schools here is quite a bit lower than our surrounding districts. We did have a decrease in our tax rate by almost a little over 90 cents just a couple of years ago, actually. And it'll be held flat for this current year as what it was last year. Kind of look more broadly than just the metro. If you look statewide at property tax rates, I've got West Des Moines schools circled here in the middle, but what the darker blues are the higher tax rate districts. School districts, these represent all the districts in Iowa. The lighter colors would mean a lower tax rate. So it gives you, again, a broader sense of how West Des Moines kind of stacks up against districts across the state of Iowa. It just zeroes in a little bit more on the metro here. But our district is that, obviously, that small one then in the light blue color. So just to answer the question right up front, how would a bond referendum impact taxes for a local property owner, either residential or commercial? We have the illustrations here for you. In both cases, we're talking about a $300,000 assessed value or quasi-market value for that property. Why $300,000? We didn't just pick that out of the air. That's not too far from the median price of a house in the West Des Moines School District. So that's how we adopted that number. But we also use that for commercial just for consistency here. But we have two bond amounts, one $80 million and one $135 million. And I'll speak to the larger one to start. $135 million is actually the most we could pursue as a district, absent doing a petition of our voters throughout the summer here to get 2,500 or 2,600 signatures by qualified signers. And the board made the decision early, rather than go through the whole petition process, just to try to work on clarifying our scope and then make sure we're informing people throughout the fall up until the election on November 4th. So anyway, you can see here, again, $135 million bond, for example, would impact a residential property owner of a $300,000 home by $17.41 a month, just over a couple $100 a year. And then likewise, you can see the impact on a commercial property owner, either at $135 million or a lesser amount. We picked $80 million as another benchmark to look at the impact of that. And we haven't yet, our board hasn't yet decided where we'll exactly land, and that will largely depend on the feedback from you as our community. So one of the other questions addressed asked in the video was, why not use PEPL or SAVE? PEPL and SAVE, if you don't know, are really two main infrastructure funding sources for school districts. The physical plant and equipment levy we have had in place for many years, and then the statewide penny, if you will, or SAVE, has also been in play for many years. But both of them are geared toward infrastructure. They're not about paying salaries and benefits for our staff. They really are about infrastructure. And I use that term infrastructure broader than bricks and mortar. As you can see here, buses, non-instructional software, equipment of any kind, vehicles, all those things fall under what I would call the broader term of infrastructure. Collectively, those two sources of revenue bring in about $23 million a year to the district, and that's what we're expecting for this year. But also, and we'll show it more in another slide, about $14 million of that is already consumed by debt service. In the last several years, the district has, rather than go for a bond, the district has borrowed against these funding sources to avoid having to go back to additional property tax levy. But we're at the point now, if we're going to do additional improvements, we really, especially to accelerate those improvements or maybe to expand the scope of what we would do, we really need to look at a bond. But we have borrowed against both PEPL and SAVE. We have some of that money obviously left each year to spend on these types of things, but it's obviously not enough to tackle some of the larger projects, just as the video alluded to. So if you look at how we did spend the money in fiscal 25, so that year ended June 30th, and how we project to spend that money in fiscal 26. And this is aside from any of these new initiatives or remodel projects that are in front of us. You can see that where the money has gone, the thing that sticks out obviously is the tall bars there on the left side are debt repayment. But aside from that, we've done some good work in technology and transportation, but we're also right now, for instance, doing some work over at the Valley baseball, softball fields. But you can see many different things on the list, anywhere from concrete replacement to roofing replacements and all sorts of things, HVAC systems. We're doing some of that, but it goes much more slowly without a more significant funding source. This is, I would refer to as a spaghetti chart. But it does introduce the idea that school finance is a little bit more complex in Iowa than perhaps most people would like it to be. The two funds that I mentioned already were in purple in that fund column, and then SAVE. There are a lot of other funding sources. Debt service would ultimately be really, again, how the bond issue would fall in. But the general fund is our largest fund. It's shown on there as the largest box as well. But again, that's our operating fund. And so it's important to understand that, again, there are just different funding streams in Iowa school finance, and as the video said, many of them just don't cross over, and so we are limited in how we use funds under Iowa law. But just one key slide here on the operating fund. I mentioned that, and it is our largest fund. As the video said, and this will be true of West Des Moines, 80% of our revenue from that fund goes to pay for salaries and benefits for staff. So it is a significant portion. You can see in the next little section there, utilities and various other things also come out of the general fund. Really anything that's a day-to-day operating expense is going to come out of the general fund. And then importantly, again, this issue of not crossing over, the general fund can't pay for capital improvements to buildings, remodeling of classrooms, site improvements. That's not allowed. So again, and then the vice versa. We can't use a bond issue to pay staff salaries, nor would we want to. That's not necessarily a healthy strategy to think about borrowing to pay personnel. So anyway, that's just a brief synopsis on general fund. I think it's important to recognize and encourage anyone to reach out to the district, to me, anybody else in the district. Be glad to field questions as we go through this process. And if we can sit down and just have a conversation or go over a phone call, that's great as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Adams.
All right. Well, and certainly we weren't expecting you to be a school finance expert after a couple, 3 minutes, but just to kind of give you an idea about funding, because during the survey, we did get asked a lot of questions about that. And so we were wanting to kind of create some context around the buckets of money. What I want to do now, and I think I will take back over that just to keep things moving, is I want to hear about your experiences in the schools, your children's experiences in the schools. And we have a number of note takers here today, a number of them. People are writing all this stuff down so we can process that. We do ask that, are you going to do the mic pass, Kurt? We're going to have to pass the microphone around, because the other thing, we are live streaming this and we are interacting with folks on the live stream. They may ask some questions, and I give Alexandra permission to interrupt me and pop in with a conversation. So here's kind of how I want to frame it. I want you to think big a little bit. I want you to think about, in your mind's eye, I know you have in your mind's eye, what you expect out of a school and how it serves your student and how it serves you as a family. And so I want you to think big a little bit. Think about what's missing as we have this conversation. What would you like to see within our schools? So here's how I'm going to kind of take you on a tour, if you will. First, I'd like to start kind of with, did I do that myself? Early childhood, okay? And of course, a lot of our preschools are within our elementaries. So let's kind of put these together. Let's think about the school site. So you haven't even walked into the front buildings yet. Think about the school site, the parking lots, the playgrounds, the sidewalks, the landscaping, the curb appeal, if you will. Talk to me about the experiences you've had as, drop off, pick up, visiting the buildings as it relates to just the school site, okay? And we've got a small group tonight, so don't be bashful. And we'll pass the mic, so just raise your hand. The first 2 points are the hardest to score, I know that, but come on now. Just as far as what you see. I'll prime the pump a little bit.
Referendum big enough to solve the school pickup drop problem. If you've ever done it, you know it. It's just you jerk it could get better and more efficient.
So think about I'll prime the pump a little bit. We heard yesterday we noticed a lot of cracked concrete, a lot of potholes, some of those kinds of things. And so this is how I kind of frame this. Everything in your home has a life expectancy, right? The more you use it, the faster it wears out. Imagine 9,000 children running through your home. That's what we have each and every day. We serve about 9,000 students in our schools, so you can imagine things wear out. Concrete is one of those. We are constantly replacing concrete. Every year we have a replacement cycle, and we can't keep up. So that's an example. So think about landscaping, think about the sidewalks, think about the playgrounds, think about just the overall structure of the school site.
Our school has some drainage issues around the sidewalk, and so a lot of times the kids are walking through rain puddles or mud that has stayed there after it rains. So sometimes with the concrete goes like some of that extra stuff.
That's because kids don't like jumping in puddles. As a former elementary principal, I just remember they just avoided them at all costs. Absolutely. So I appreciate that. What a great observation. So just grading how, when you think about a water intrusion plan, if you will, how it stays away from the building and how it drains off. Thank you for sharing that. So other things that you see at the school site before you even enter the building at our elementary schools. Oh, Finette's got right over here.
Don't like silence. I think one of the concerns that I have is the pickup and drop off. I mean, there are times like at Western Hills when you are dropping off, the flow has improved, but the minute that you leave the parking lot to get back on 39th Street, if you're looking north, you kind of have to come out a little bit to be able to make that left-hand turn. And even almost the same thing when you're coming out of the parking lot, when you go to make a right, it's almost the same thing. I go slow, but I keep thinking, oh my gosh, one of these times someone's going to hit me.
Yeah.
So just
traffic flow.
the traffic flow.
Entry and all those kinds of things. Excellent. Thank you. Other thoughts as you just kind of entering? See, now we're starting to think this is awesome.
Actually, to follow up with that, because that's where my kids who have now moved out, but some of that I could see with working with the city on the no parking, because the parents do park on 39th, and that's what you can't see around. So I don't know if that's a problem at the other schools, and is there a way of working with the city on getting no parking allowed, in certain areas that would help increase traffic flow going in and out of the school during drop off and pick up. But I had another thing. And I don't know if this is relevant at all, but I'd actually like to see a lot more trees and have playgrounds that have more shade. And it actually provides better cooling overall for buildings to do that. So, and I mean, I know there's a lot of maintenance issues that often get brought up, but they makes for much better environments for the students.
Absolutely appreciate that. And we've had to take down a number of trees simply because of disease and whatnot, and we have replanted a lot of trees, but actually I was just preparing a conversation. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Yeah. The next best time is now. So I appreciate that feedback. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. That was what I was going to bring up. I don't have a lot of experience because my oldest starts kindergarten this fall.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
So, but I was going to mention the same thing. My impression driving by many buildings, my kids will go to Jordan Creek up on top of the hill. Jordan Creek, Southwood seems very open, very few trees. I know there's a lot of use for a lot of land, and large buildings have challenges, but I was going to say exactly the same thing. that more trees would be fantastic.
Thank you. This is the exact feedback I'm asking for, right? So that's on the school site. Now let's start walking in, just for sake of time. Walk in the front doors. What do you see? How does it feel? What are your students telling you, your children telling you about that experience as you walk in? Think about the hallways and the core areas. So the office area, the gymnasium, the cafeteria, some of those, and then entering the classrooms. Talk to me a little bit about that experience.
I think it's difficult. I don't think my kids have ever said anything. So I have one who will be going to Valley, who has been at Southwoods, and then the other just finished at Western Hills and will be going to Stillwell. So I've had several different stages. But from my personal experience and just going in, and part of it, though, is difficult because how you try to modify spaces because of the security and everything that goes in, and that changes everything. It's overall much less welcoming, but I also know why it's there. But because the buildings weren't necessarily designed that way, it can be confusing if you're a first-time parent, if you're a guardian who's picking up, like if I can't get there and my parents have to pick up the kids, just having much more clear ways for accessing the office. You don't always know, do I push the button? Do I not push the button? How do I get in? Where do I go? Once I get in the building, I don't know. Like in Western Hills, it's easy. You know where you're going with the office. It's Stillwell. I walked in. I'm like, I don't know where the office is. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Sometimes an outer door is open after hours, but the inner door is not. So there's a lot of that kind of.
Appreciate that.
But otherwise, the kids have never actually mentioned going into a building. I don't think that it registers. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, my two boys aren't talking to me about this, but I don't know that it registers the same way.
Sure. But I really appreciate that feedback. This came up last night as well. Single secure front entrances. So when we think about physical safety and psychological safety, that's one of the big ones when it relates to what I was talking about, facilities connecting to better student outcomes. There's an and. How do we make it feel more welcoming? We're doing these things, and is there ways to make it feel more welcoming? I love how you connected those two things, because I think that's the next level of work we need to do around that. We've got your kids safe, and we want to open these doors to families and community and parents to partner with us in this school experience. So thank you for that.
I just thought about something else. Once again, I'm imagining how it is when you're coming up to elementary specifically. Like a lot of times the kids will have to stand outside. They arrive to school early. It could be 5, 10, 15 minutes, but they have to stand outside. They're not allowed in until actually the start. Or if they're eating breakfast, someone will stand there and say, okay, you're eating breakfast, you can go. Oh, you're not eating breakfast, no, you can't. So even the confusion, once they are dropped off, they can't physically go into the building.
Yep. Gotcha. Awesome. So how are the classrooms and the spaces? How's the lighting? How's the color? Is it welcoming? Is it warm? What are you experiencing in there? And what's missing? And what's missing? What's missing in our elementaries?
I'm not sure exactly what the answer is, but natural light is always good. And this lighting is way better than the lighting that the kids sit under all day. And so a lot of times the teachers have the lights off for a good period of like most of the day, and the kids are becoming not used to the overhead lights anymore. And so if a sub comes in and likes light, they're not used to it because that's not their normal everyday experience. So something around the lighting in the classrooms, in the whole school as a whole. This is really nice lighting if we could take that to the schools.
Gotcha. Well, you're going to talk about lighting as well? Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
I always told my kids that windows were distracting and just make it through junior high. Make it through junior high. Windows are distracting. But looking back, natural light is huge for their mood and their behavior. I think we know more about that now and how it would impact them. You showed the picture of the kindergarten rooms, and I didn't understand what was different besides the furniture. Our kids are so old that they started on the one on the left, and I was like, oh, that looks normal.
But more of the flexible furniture in there, and more of the show on the standard. There'll be a standard amount of whiteboards. There'll be standard technology. But that's a great question. There wasn't a lot of difference in them, but as we developed the standard, there's a whole list of what we want to have in an elementary school classroom, whether it's a kindergarten classroom with a restroom or a first grade classroom. I mean, I always say we can put first graders in a kindergarten classroom, but we can't put kindergartners in a first grade classroom if that's our standard, having a restroom. So things like that.
Rooms have voice amplification, rooms have short throw projectors, they have, to be real frank, carpeting without duct tape on that, and some of those kinds of things. So, yep.
Yeah, I'd just like to second the natural lighting and having windows. I know there's been, over the past 20, 30 years, definite trend towards schools not looking as open as they used to, and quite frankly, they can look prison-like. And some of that is a lack of windows. And yes, they are distracting, but natural light has been shown to, like you said, like we know a lot more than we used to. And I think natural light and having non-fluorescent tube lighting is important as well, because I don't think any of us like to work under that if we don't have to.
With that, we didn't create them thinking that they would have devices all the time. So the glare off of that is also different.
Very good. Excellent. What's missing in the elementaries? We haven't talked a lot about space, and I'm not trying to lead the witness here, but that did come up last night quite a bit about the amount of space in different areas, and is it serving adequately? But what's missing? And is there something that would just really enhance the experience at that elementary level? And maybe it's windows. Maybe the theme tonight is windows and natural light. But just kind of thinking from in terms of enhancing that educational experience of the students each and every day.
We are hearing from the chat as well, just echoing some of those comments about the natural light in the windows, and also about signage inside and outside of the schools, just for wayfinding, and also just for having that same district look, making sure those signs outside of the schools are equitable.
That came up last night, the wayfinding and the signage and all that. Awesome, whoever's online. But thank you.
So I can't speak from experience on this actually being missing, but it's one of my major concerns, which is I graduated from Valley 25 years ago. And the message I got through my schooling in this district was, if you don't go to college, you're a failure. Like that was the overall thing. You go to college, go to college, go to college. And in a community like this, that's overwhelmingly what most kids probably expect. But I have now gained a much greater appreciation for going into the trades, going into other kinds of careers and vocations. And my concern is, from the earliest levels of childhood, beyond just focusing on traditional academics, reading, writing, arithmetic, what are we doing to expose kids to that future path? That just going to college to study in more classrooms is not the only option you have available to you after you graduate from high school, but get our hands on things. Learn that being an electrician or a plumber is a valid and a lucrative way to go through life later. And how do we get that message to kids from their earliest stages in our school district?
You just threw me a huge softball. Thank you for that. We just spent $28 million investing in just what you described in the CTE. I'm more than happy to take you on it. Valley Southwoods. I'll take you up there for a tour anytime you'd like. From a dad whose son is a journeyman electrician. There is a bright, bright future in the trades. We have established so many different career pathways for our students. It is not about just a 4-year degree. It's going to the trades, 2-year degree, going into the military, preparing you to go right into the job world. Yeah, that paradigm has shifted quite a bit since the time the two of us grew up. I will tell you that. So, and I want to thank, and Finette Elliott is on the Board of Education as well, and that's a commitment that the board made to just that kind of a future for our students. We have a ball going up there when they sign. We do it almost like letters of intent. It's pretty cool. They are going to John Deere. Love your hat. They're going to John Deere. They're going to Quality Manufacturing. They're going to Wells Fargo. They're doing internships and apprenticeships all over. I have conversations with Russ Trimble, the mayor, as well as Tom Haddon, the city manager, about internships and connecting our students. Because if you ever heard my speech, it's this: the students in our schools today are your neighbors tomorrow. People come here, stay here, live, work, and play here. And so we got to prepare them for all kinds of jobs outside that college degree. See, you did. You kind of gave me a nice, easy one. So thank you for asking that. But that's a commitment that we've made.
So I guess following on that, in our early childhood, in our classroom design, in the tools available to teachers, that supports a curriculum that moves in that, I'd want to see that supported in the classroom design to enable those activities and those pathways.
Yeah, whether you call it a worker
early
space or you call it a STEM lab or whatever, they're popping up in our elementaries. Recently, I can speak to Fair Meadows. I can speak to many, but Fair Meadows in a recent upgrade included, I don't know if they call it a STEM lab or a maker space, but an area where they are playing around and building. And there's,
I think time and time again, out of the 800 or 2,400 people in the survey, we read the word STEM. And we read the word CTE. So the architects have got that on their agenda too, to look into that. But
yep. So let's now kind of start transitioning to junior high. Start thinking, it's kind of the same thing as you're kind of walking in. Think about the school site. Think of now you're probably going to add some athletic facilities and amenities that way. Again, the concrete, just what you're experiencing before you even go into the building. So we're talking about Indian Hills and Stillwell. You don't have to tell me about the traffic at Stillwell. I got an earful yesterday.
From what I know about Indian Hills, they have a need for performance space for their show. My daughter was in show choir, and they couldn't ever practice or perform in there. I think we went there, once for a little ensemble, can fit on the stage. So more performing arts space. I think overall, the junior highs, from a parent perspective, it's tough because you're letting go of that elementary feel in the community, and then they go, and it's more purposely designed for the students, not the parents as much, and that's okay. So spaces that speak more to kids that age versus what parents may prefer. I think that's what junior high needs.
Really appreciate that. And at the same time, what came out loud and clear in the desired daily experience of parents, they want to know what's going on with their child at school. So yeah, you don't want to be, yeah. Fair. I don't want to be in that mix. Just want to know what's kind of going on. Love it. Fair.
Just driving up to the two different junior highs, they are completely different buildings. They look completely different. I don't know if that matters or whatever, but they're just completely different buildings.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
They look completely different. Indian Hills is a maze, and Stillwell is,
gotcha.
the multi-level. Stillwell has an amazing auditorium. Indian Hills could use a major renovation. It's just older. It's not bad. It's just older. But to make those two comparable, we always have the music camps there in the summer. But the Stillwell Auditorium is a lot nicer to sit in. So, anyways.
Let's stay at Indian Hills. I heard comments last night about that green space. The green space at Indian Hills, is there in the very back? Is there any opportunities there? Is there something missing there that you'd like to talk about or lift up? And if not, what's that? Sure. We're dreaming big. An outdoor pool. Okay, no takers.
I mean, so
She's thinking. I love it. That's why you're here.
I grew up a block from Indian Hills, and I loved that green space just as a piece of the community. Like, we played over there all the time. We played roller hockey on those tennis courts. We played all kinds of sports. All of my sports practices were 2 blocks away as we walked through because there's so much space available there. I mean, that kind of space is rare, I think. And I absolutely loved it as a kid growing up in that neighborhood.
Sure. Last night we did have the city official from the city of Clive. I value the relationship that we have with the city of West Des Moines and the city of Clive in that space, and that's why that kind of came up. That space in general is used with the community quite a bit, as well as with the schools, and just kind of talked about the opportunities that are there. So I appreciate your perspective on that. So again, and let's go ahead and walk in now. Let's mentally, you can start walking into that junior high.
Unless you're still outside.
If you're still outside, we'll stay
I could
outside.
probably hit both.
Okay.
I think it's actually very much a similar comment that I had with the elementary school. It's just wayfinding outside. And I think I'm much more familiar with Stillwell, which I thought got a little easier. Some of the changes that have happened, and especially like with drop off pickup, which I don't do, thankfully. We have buses, which I love. But I think inside are some of the similar ones, like where do people know where to go, how to get around, where, and they're both mazes. They're just, one is spread out and one is up and down. And that's just a parent perspective. I mean, my son, obviously he figured it out. He didn't have any problems. The kids are there every day, so they figure it out, but it's just more confusing for the rest of us.
I appreciate it. I like that. I'm making a connection that you shared about, is it welcoming and is it inviting? And then, if it feels confusing and we're not, hey, here's the office, or that waypointing and signage, that's a great way to kind of connect those two. I think you had your hand up.
This is the outside. And this is with my kids. They were in track in 8th grade. And it was kind of interesting that it took halfway through the season to get lines drawn on the grass. When I grew up and went to middle school, we actually had a small track there at the facility. Otherwise, they had to go to Valley once a week for practice.
Yep. Appreciate you sharing that. That came up.
I think the green space is valuable.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you for that. Okay, now we're inside. We're inside Stillwell. We're inside Indian Hills. My favorite McDonald's employee is here. How are you?
Okay, so I think at Stillwell, it's just like a problem with the cleanliness. Like when you're using the bathroom, sometimes there'll be bugs crawling out of the drain, like ants. And then like sometimes in the gym hallway, like the orange hallway at Stillwell, like when you're walking, like it might just be because there's a lot of doors over there, but you'll see like a lot of like big bugs. Like one time I was walking down the hallway and one like flew at my face.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my only problem.
Do you ever see spiders?
Yes, I saw
see Dr.
a
Adams
huge spider in the gym.
I might even push you out of the way to get out of it. I'm just saying. We've known each other for a long time, so you'd forgive me for that. I think, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here. That's pretty cool to have a student show up here to talk about the facility that they're in and then sharing your experience. I'm not there every day, you are. I didn't know there was bugs. We can take care of that. We've got contracts with pest control, and if we need to get that taken care of, we'll get that taken care of.
I was going to say, my eldest did tell me about the mice that he saw, and he swears he saw a rat, but I'm not entirely sure that's accurate. So I'm not sure, but he did comment on the bathrooms, the restrooms, a lot, and so that was something.
And so when you think about the general upkeep of buildings, that does contribute, right? That level of engagement, that pride, that also contributes to better student outcomes. So I appreciate you lifting that up.
And also, I don't know if it's like because of tech ed or culinary, but sometimes like it'll happen off and on during the week. Like it'll just start smelling really bad and the whole school like stinks so bad. No, Stillwell. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe your peers need to kind of take things off the stove a little sooner.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like the plumbing or something, because some people say it's like the plumbing, but I don't know. It happens all the time.
Okay. All right, let's stay in.
This isn't the junior high, but yeah, Southwoods has a odor issue.
We've been chasing that for a little over
I'm sure you.
Yep.
We do have some
Got it.
other junior high ideas
Oh,
from
yeah.
from the online
awesome.
as well. Yeah. Actually, our new principal of Indian Hills is joining us on the chat.
Awesome.
Yes, Cameron Wood. So he brought up some updates to classrooms, ideas for new or updated basketball courts and hoops in the back, and then we have other people bringing up performing arts spaces at both junior highs, acknowledging that there have been upgrades, obviously beautiful new auditorium at Stillwell, but just space issues, not being able to fit even one grade with families and people who want to attend events in those spaces.
I really appreciate the engagement.
Yeah, we have a very active chat today. They're great.
That's awesome. Other thoughts in the junior highs? And you reserve the right to come back to it, and we kind of as we finish up. And hey, I had another thought. Here's the other thing that I would offer. Last night we did stay around quite a while. If you want to tell personal stories, if you're not somebody that feels comfortable grabbing a microphone and sharing, we'll be around because I want to hear about your experience. You can also send us an email, and we'll add that to the copious notes that are being taken tonight. So there's other options if you don't feel comfortable sharing that. So let's go on to the high school. Kind of the same thing. Think about, and with this also comes just the areas with athletic facilities. Think about the school site as you walk in. Again, the cement, the parking lots, the sidewalks, the landscape, the curb appeal as you enter that building up. And when I say high school, let's not limit our thoughts to Valley High School. Steve Shapaw is in the room today. He's our new executive director of secondary, and I love his language matches mine. We have one high school. It happens to be in 3 different facilities. So we've got an alternative program, high school at Walnut Creek campus. We've got a 9th grade building up the hill at Valley South Woods, and then we have 10th through 12th at Valley High School. So when you hear me talk about high school, please don't limit yourself to Valley High School. Think about the 3 campuses that serve our 9-12, okay? So whatever you want to share with me that way. So think about your experience as you just kind of enter the parking lot and you make your way to the front door of one of those buildings. What's your experience been outside? Well, don't be bashful.
I can
'cause
be a
there's
squeaky
a
wheel,
small
so
group.
that's good.
You told us you had students from all the way
Yeah,
across. So
I
thank
now
you.
had the I'm getting the full spectrum now. So, Southwoods again. Some of that when I was talking about like getting into the building, that was kind of my experience with Southwoods. It can be confusing, and access. And I think it wasn't until like the last 2 weeks of school that I actually knew where the office was. Part of that's on me. And I recognize that, but having a good understanding, I thought of this earlier. It'd be great to. Is it possible to have floor plans shared with parents? I don't know if there are security issues that are concerned or at least like having somewhere that's accessible that people can find out. Here's the door where where parents can access. This is where the office is. To get into the building, you need to press this button, but if only during these hours. And there's a lot of qualifications on that. I still am not 100% sure where the main entrance to Valley is. because I always go in by the band room or the cafeteria gym entrance on the west side, and it's around the other side, right?
Yep.
And that's just also I know comes from additions. You put enough additions on a building and it gets a little screwy. What else? I figure if I've got the microphone, I'll.
We can
I
give
think
it
our
back to you.
I think our architects are hearing loud and clear wayfinding. I think they're hearing loud and clear. I envision you as a kindergarten dad to walk in the building and you know right where you're going all the way to conferences. And so I think we're hearing that a lot tonight.
One thing also I'm thinking of in relation to all of the buildings, all the schools, everybody does talk about STEM, but I like to think more of STEAM with arts. I have both of my kids are in band and marching band, and we're got storage space and everything that is required, and I know that's got to be a thing for show choir as well. And this is not just a building facility issue, but athletics always takes so much of a priority, but arts is something that people do for a lifetime, and you don't always get that scholarship for baseball. Just saying. He also plays baseball too, but and I'm a historian. I'm an architectural historian. I work with architects. I work with everything, and there's been such a heavy influence, or not influence, but everybody's been very much more technology driven, that I don't want our arts and culture programs like history, social studies, languages to be forgotten in the needs in facility needs and what is required for the students there as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We're inside now. Are you ready to go? You ready to go inside?
I think there's an overall concern at Valley for the level of crowdedness. I've never been there during passing periods or things like that, and how that, I'm sure that's been addressed and talked about, but how that could be addressed from a facilities need, I don't know. I'm not the expert. That's just what I hear from my student. It's crowded.
It is
I mean,
crowded. 2,300
it's-
students. Yep.
It's an awesome place. My kids thrive there, but it's really, really crowded. And then outside parking, I don't know if they need more parking, because I drive by sometimes after lunch. Certainly that south side by the baseball fields is empty. And all I hear from the kids is there's no parking. It's maybe only in the morning. So to spend money addressing parking for students, I don't know if it's a need on numbers, but maybe better flow or efficiency for parking. But I mean, to make a high school parking lot more efficient seems impossible, right? So probably not something.
Is there still overflow parking at Shepherd of the Valley Church over there?
Shepherd of the Valley, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to get it right, yes.
That intersection at Ashworth and 39th is the most ridiculous, dangerous intersection I've ever personally been involved in. I've personally witnessed, when I was in high school at Valley, 4 different accidents at that intersection, trying to turn left off Ashworth onto 39th to get into that church. And then recently, my wife has been rear-ended at that intersection. And so that's something that maybe it's worth working to the city, though. That's got to have turn lanes, because you can't see around. And that's just a safety issue that has bothered me for nearly 30 years now, after seeing all of the accidents that happen at that intersection, including a fellow student of mine hospitalized because of the severity of an accident at that intersection, and realizing that with a friend of mine and I, pure luck we weren't in the same situation based on the visibility we had coming up over that hill as we went in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very spot on. There have been so many accidents at 39th and Ashworth as you're trying to get to Valley or leave. And I was actually told part of it is the traffic signals. If you're on 39th, it's like takes forever whereas it's more geared towards Ashworth. So there's a flow on Ashworth, but if you're on 39th and if you're trying to get to Valley, yeah, it's stressful.
Okay. Now we're inside. Think about the core areas. Think about the classrooms. Think.
Look at Valley. I wonder, is there a single brick of that building that's the same as 25 years ago?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The English wing is gone. The fine arts wing is gone. The new main entrance was the tiniest part of the school when I was there. So it's crazy.
I've never been in the weight room at Valley, but I hear that it's quite small. I have no idea on how that compares, and if it would need to be refurbished or expanded, I don't know. But I know that it's open in the mornings in the summertime for use, after not just football, but for all the sports, and it's immensely crowded.
A lot of
Training and all that has become so ingrained, whether your kid is, no matter what sport or activity, and it's great that it's open to the students all summer, but it's at capacity from what I hear.
Yep. Awesome.
This is lining up with, again, what we are hearing from our live stream viewers. Kind of to your point about, what is remaining of the original school. People have brought up the pool area and the band wing as places that have not been remodeled. I'm really wanting to get that pool looked at, especially because it serves our students, families, and so many in the community. And then to that training piece, we've had a lot of comments about some kind of multi-purpose facility for training, athletics, arts, something that would serve our students and help keep them from having to go off-site to train and practice, but then also something that would serve the community as well and kind of be that flexible space.
Something that is such a strength of ours is suddenly becoming a weakness, and that is our students are so involved in so many things, which is so awesome, the way that they're connecting. And we've really enjoyed, as a board, and thank you, Elizabeth Larson, another board member walking in tonight, we've really enjoyed student representatives on the board sharing with us the stories of what's going on and their own stories, and they are busy. So when you say that ingrained, that everybody's showing up to work out, everybody's showing up everybody's showing up. No, now they're all showing up. And how cool is that? Now with that comes some new challenges. Our retired athletic director here was last night. He was kind of talking about space, because obviously we also want to make sure for access. I've got my executive director of access and culture here tonight. We want to make sure that students can have access to that. And it could be a transportation issue. If I end up going home on the bus, there's not a way for me to get back. So how do we schedule out our buildings and our facilities to make sure that everybody has the access to these programmings that we offer? That is so, so vitally important. So I really appreciate, I'm just making a lot of connections right now with some of the things you're sharing. This is why you showed up. Thank you so much for this feedback.
That jogged my mind on the transportation and both with the back and forth between Southwoods and Valley, and this is more of a transportation bus issue, but the bus broke down a couple of times this year, and which means that students lose class time, and then he also did baseball, and so when the freshmen practice, sometimes they're at Holiday Park, and then between getting out of school and having to be at Holiday, and then there's a bus, but maybe there's not, and is it enough time where do kids do they have enough time to go home and then get to it? So there's a lot of, I think that's a disadvantage with having different campuses and sharing space amongst those campuses, because I know he's a rising sophomore, so he took German and had to go to Valley, and then yes, the bus broke down a couple of times, and then one time the bus didn't show up. So he's missing either German or he's late getting back at the end of the day, and then that was impacting At the end of the year, it impacts baseball, or it was impacting just home life and things that have to happen. So, if there are better ways to handle that, and if it's, I can imagine that is a tremendous amount of pressure on scheduling and figuring it all
Logistics, yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have to do it. But it's tough because that impacts their grades, that impacts how they're doing, and it's just not good.
Can we take just a little deeper dive into this Valley Southwoods, Valley High School, the experience at Valley Southwoods and transitions, and just take it a little and how the facilities can play into that. Can you take a little deeper dive for me? The experience at Valley Southwoods and the transition to Valley and just how all
I
that's
think
worked
I think
for you
whatever
guys.
can happen at Southwoods to grow the pride of that school, because we've had 2 kids go through Southwoods, and there's just a general about that building and that school, and like physically it's a beautiful space, and they have all the trades and all the stuff is there, but there's something about that isolation, and I know that's a whole other committee that is come and gone of making it different grades there or whatever, but I know it's set up as a high school, and it is a 9th grade, and it is a high school, but there's this general disconnection that comes from the facility being separate. It is what it is, and I think that West Des Moines offers so many robust things, and because of that becomes lots of logistic challenges of being on the different campuses that you've addressed. But seeing 2 kids go through Southwoods, when they're there, there's just this general But somehow throughout the way at Valley, I felt like the pride comes later. But you alluded to the facilities improvement and how that impacts student achievement, but maybe what it could do to the pride of the school. I mean, there's been some vandalism cases there over the years and things like that. I think it's something with that. Is it the age of the kids? Is it the need that comes from that age of student that you find across the whole district? Like, what age group is it that you just kind of bang your head against the wall? And from a parent perspective, to me, it seems like it's 9th grade, because they're in elementary and it's manageable, and then 7th and 8th, they're together, so there's some peer checking there, and then this 9th grade thing kind of hits the kids in the face, and the parents are like, what? And then they make it through, and then I say this to parents who don't have, or we're the older parent, don't worry, it'll get okay when you get to Valley. Trust me. They will find their way, they will find their path, they will find their group, through activities or academics. But something about Southwoods, and I don't know if it can be addressed through facilities, but overall, that's the one that kind of just hit us like this.
Those comments resonated with a lot of people behind you. So I would tell you from a parent's perspective, it's about till they get to 28 years old. That's been my experience.
I'll preface this might be really out of date, but I was in the last class to go 4 years at Valley, and Southwoods opened the next year. And when my peers, a grade younger, came to Valley, their overwhelming response at Southwoods was they treat us like bigger babies in 9th grade than they did in 7th and 8th grade. And maybe, I don't know if that's part of the culture thing, but that's what I heard from everybody. They were like, we had more freedom and determination and ability to do what we wanted, and they treated us more maturely in the junior highs, and it was a step backwards in the 9th grade school.
Interesting.
You said peer checking, and I think that's missing with the 9th graders. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's stay in the high school. I appreciate that. Some of this resonated with the group last night. I had people say it feels like a junior high, so it's tracking with what you just described. And I had somebody last night say there isn't a senior saying, "Hey, knock it off," and so that's tracking with what you just said, checking. So I really appreciate that. So what else in the high school is you thinking that? Well, what's missing, and what's missing? What's that piece that we want to be the destination district?
I don't know Valley well enough to know how much the media center or library is utilized nowadays. It seems like a big space right there in the middle. But day to day, knowing how crowded it is, how could that be? Every time I walk by, there's just lots of tables, and I'm not there much during the school day, right? We're there for other events, but I never heard once from 4 years my student spending time in that space. It's big.
Just making sure we got a return on investment in the space that we do have. Okay, that's fair, fair. What else within the high school? That's great feedback. Let's keep it rolling. We got time.
This isn't exactly an ad or anything, but just to echo what he said about Indian Hills and just upgrading the classrooms and stuff, there are some older, outdated classrooms at all of the secondary buildings that could use just a refresh.
Yep. You're also affirming what we learned in the survey. Overwhelmingly, the number one desire was modernization and updating of classroom space. And as we've completed the audits, we've kind of seen the same thing. And one of the things is as I go around and look in the buildings, what I've noticed, and I've said this about a particular building, we've had the best floor covering butted up against the worst floor covering. So we've, in the district. And so we've done some projects that have really enhanced certain areas of buildings, but not all areas of a building. And so, my belief, how I've handled things over, and I've done this 30 years, is when you go into a building, you bring that up to the standard, and then you go on to the next building. And so we do have, I think last night somebody shared with us, beautiful space in Westridge, and then I go to another area and ceiling tiles falling out and things are leaking. So, when we think about, we know a lot about our buildings right now. We've walked them, we've had conversations about programming that's offered in them, we've examined storage space, programming space, all of those things. So you're really doing a great job of affirming what we really knew to be true. And then what's that next? What's that piece? There's a lot of choice. I addressed 21 new teachers. We're going to have some orientation throughout the summer, and I said, thanks for picking us. I think it's really important that great educators are picking West Des Moines Community Schools. They have choice. There's a lot of choice, and so they picked West Des Moines Schools. And I say the same thing to families. Thanks for picking West Des Moines Schools, because you have a lot of choice. So thank you for entrusting us with your children in that education. And so when you think about the facilities, you're looking at them, you're paying attention to them, and you have, like I said, in your mind's eye, what you expect, from the school districts as it relates to how we care for your child. Do they feel that safety, that psychological safety, physical safety? Do they feel welcome? Do they feel a sense of belonging? You want that. How do I know? Because I'm a dad. I've raised 3, and that's what I wanted for my children. And so how do we execute on that through the facilities? So we're getting really close. I can tell the energy is kind of coming down a little bit, but that's okay. What other things do you want me to know about? And then I'm going to share a timeline with you. And this is potpourri. Open it up. If you thought, Matt, I meant to tell you about something at the elementary or junior high, high school, the fine arts. Thank you for connecting fine arts to this, athletics to this, co-curricular, extracurricular. We've got our kids involved in so many things that we want to make sure we have the facilities to support that.
So what's the process of looking around at what's been done and in other schools, and not necessarily going with the latest trends, but looking to research-driven knowledge about what contributes to student success, and what's the explicit way that is integrated into this process to set priorities, set designs, and actually go through the process of updating rooms, buildings, et cetera, at all levels?
That's a great question. Enlisting the help of experts. There are 2 architects who are actually sitting in the room. They both have pen in hand, taking a lot of notes, knowing what those trends are across the country as it relates to and how to enhance education. So I think Tim kind of hit the nail on the head when he talked about, is it voice amplification? Is it short throw projectors? Is it just a standard in a classroom with instructional technology to take us to that next level? Again, is it about safety is a big one. Safety is a big one. The safety and general health and well-being of students is a big one, because those become distractions, like I told you about HVAC systems and recommissioning them or commissioning them so they're operating and not. I used to, as an elementary principal, they'd knock on my door and say, my room's too hot. And the person next door would say, my room's too cold. I was like, we got these violent temperature variances throughout the building. It's because of HVAC, and it caused disruption. So yeah, I've got experts that are going to help guide us in what classrooms should look like. And not to digress, but Tim was starting to hit on that with the furniture. We had a conversation this morning in a meeting that talked about maybe the disparity about I call it FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, things that are in classrooms that don't contribute to cooperation, for instance. Some of us grew up in those sled desks in rows, and that's all they did was made rows. Now you've got different desks and chairs that actually promote cooperation, right? If you go onto a playground and you see a double slide, that's on purpose. One of the goals must have been promote cooperation. So I can go down the slide hand in hand with my buddy and do it cooperatively. So the technologies and everything has shifted and changed from those days of the sled desks.
Yeah, and as someone, I work professionally on a website. I'm very deep in technology, but I'm less concerned about technology in classrooms and what exactly it is. And the world is different for kids now, I know, but the things that I would look to for research are things that are larger and probably less apparent directly. Things like getting to natural light and lighting in the classrooms. Things like eye lines and the use of space to make kids feel certain ways. And I know there's a lot of research on that stuff for education specifically and more broadly. And those are things that might be out of scope for, you can't just completely rebuild a building.
Maybe.
But those are the things that I would look to that are like, what's going to make it a more comfortable environment, a more welcoming and open environment for the kids. It's going to promote paying attention, feeling good, and wanting to be in a space.
Absolutely. And that's, yeah.
I can answer that a little bit with when we did our analysis of the current state of our education in West Des Moines Valley schools. The architects are walking around. We had a lot of full classrooms that were divided with the 3 teachers. So some of the things that are happening in today's educational, where you have a 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, a 1-on-2 or 1-on-3, getting those teachers their own spaces and making that space feel just like a classroom. It's got the same technology. It's got the same. So we did a little bit of what you're talking about internally, and then we're going to rely on these guys to do it externally to get us to that state we want to be.
I appreciate you recognize some of the limitations, but I also think there's things that we can do that contribute to what you were describing.
I would like to address something that I know that I didn't hear out of the group yesterday, so I want to make sure that I do mention it. I don't know the longevity of having the Food Bank of Iowa partnering with the West Des Moines schools. I don't know the longevity. I don't know. I know that the numbers are a whole lot greater than what you would think. Because when you traditionally think about West Des Moines, you have an image. But things are changing. Demographics are changing. My whole point is I am concerned about how and where we designate the spots for our food pantries. It's kind of, I'll use Valley as an example. When I worked security at Valley, they go ahead and they set up. But these individuals, where is the humanity? And I say, where is the humanity? Because these individuals have to stand outside. This is prior to school being dismissed. So they're lining up out front of the building, even inside of the building. And then once all the students are leaving, the ones that are going out that main entrance, they're walking past these families that are there to secure food. Mm-hmm. I find, and I'm only mentioning Valley, but the same thing. And I know I'm so proud of our district, so proud to the fact, though, that we're concerned about our community members who may not be financially as well off. So I am so proud of the fact that we have the food bank. We've partnered with the food bank. I'm very proud. But on the same token, my heart breaks when I see these families having to stand in front of the world, so to speak, before they can come in and get their food.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually volunteered at the Valley Food Pantry on July 3rd because everybody was gone, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I will tell you that we also have what's called booster packs, and principals started recognizing that there was greater need than just with the booster pack. Okay, so the student could go home, but then the family needed some support. I'm so proud of that as well. We just recently did a board report, and over 44,000 individuals were served last year as part of the food pantry. So food insecurity is real, but we need to do it in a dignified way. So thank you for lifting that up. Other thoughts, or I'm going to start sharing a timeline. Yes. Yep.
Now I'm like, did I? It's been
That was a little bit of a mic drop moment, right?
I will say thank you for bringing that up because I remember talking to at Western Hills and asking if they need, how as an individual, how we can help support the food banks at the schools, because I do know how much how people are struggling, and we have to treat them with dignity. And I'm again very happy and proud that our schools are doing this. It's unfortunate has to happen, but I'm glad it is happening. I remember with all of this, then I would. I'm wondering, as we think about this, and the architects are here, just thinking about things, climate change is real, it's happening. That's where I think also natural light can be very important. Are we looking at ways of being environmentally friendly as we're doing some of this stuff? Has there been thought about solar? Has there, things which can also help if there are outages, just like with HVAC, and knowing that there are changes, even with flat roofs and rain and the problems that can cause. So I'm wondering if that is going to be taken into consideration for the planning.
And it was just taking note. So thank you. I will tell you, we have awesome roofs across the district, thanks to the hailstorm 3 years ago. So that's nice. But now I say that tongue in cheek, but I will tell you that did change the trajectory of our 10-year facility plan, because that was taken care of through insurance. So, but yeah, what you're talking about with solar and that absolutely can become part of that. Yep. Did you have a comment? Absolutely. I appreciate you lifting that up, and kind of speaks to what you were asking about, that exposure of the CTE at the junior high. You're talking to somebody who is married to a family consumer science teacher. So that value is so important.
Just a little, so I presented at Ankeny at their college and career readiness, and I had 2 students that were seniors up there. And I said, you need to come down and see our welding lab. And these 2 kids were graduating, going on to college to become welders, or on to trade school to become welders, and they just couldn't believe what we had at our Valley Southwoods building.
So there's quite a commitment there. So let's talk about next steps. We've been very deliberate on our timelines and providing this information to our board. So the survey closed on July 7th. We've processed that. We still have a lot of, as you can imagine, with 2,500, a lot of narratives that we're working through and identifying themes. When you think about just research, this kind of becomes a focus group. This helps us triangulate our data, kind of continue to find those themes. Monday, August 11th, the board will have a workshop. They'll spend about an hour and a half in workshop, having conversations about the data set, and also start having conversations about some concepts that will come out of the conversations that we've had tonight, okay? That we've had all the way along. And on August 11th, after we share those concepts, I'm guessing we're going to get some kind of direction from the board. We need you to do these things, and we've got about a 2-week period that will start to refine some of the conversations that we had, and then on the August 25th board meeting, kind of finalize those. August 25th is kind of significant because that would be the can I call it the drop dead date? August 25th would be the date that we need to submit language around what we'd be asking you as community members to vote on November 4th. So it is the first day of school. It is. It is. Yeah. Our board likes to keep me hopping. They just think that's fun watching me run around like that. And then from August 25th, we're probably going to tap you on the shoulder again in some way to start sharing with you, this is what kind of came out. These are the concepts. These are the things, from a rendering of what a standardized classroom should look like, and what the board sees as projects to address the things that we learned in the survey, that we've learned in our 18-month audit of our buildings, and what we learned from the last 2 nights. And then we'll start sharing those. What I've asked folks to do is as you think about the conversation we had tonight and just the things that you've experienced, I believe it resonated with you that, oh, okay, I understand why we're here tonight, in terms of bringing the standard is, bringing buildings back to that standard that you expect. So if that did resonate with you tonight, I want you to tell folks in your circle of influence. If it didn't resonate with you, forget you were here tonight, okay? But really start having conversations about the buildings and their experiences, and have people share their experiences as well. We would love to hear it from email. You can send us an email, give us a phone call, stop by as you start hearing more stories about how we can enhance what's going on in our buildings. And then, of course, from August 25th to November 4th, we're going to share and tell that story. And then on November 4th is voter day. I think there's some city officials elected, some board officials elected, and so what I would say to you is get out and vote. Be informed, and then get out and vote. Okay, I think that's really important. Any last? So Elizabeth, I think I'm going to give you the final words. Oh, I'm going to give you, and then you're getting final words. You're getting final words tonight.
So, what's the bond proposal going to look like? Because obviously we can't have specific plans for anywhere.
Right.
At this point, is that going to set certain amounts
Yes.
for certain types of projects?
Appreciate that.
Later,
It's very general. It wouldn't be to determine later, but it basically say, will you support the West Des Moines Community School District spending X number of dollars on these kinds of things? And then, it won't get specific, but enhancements around these buildings and whatnot. Does that make sense? Very, I saw some model language today, not kind of vague, but a little bit more specific. I was going to joke, and I don't really ever win, but so when I saw the $17.10, did you see that up there, that it would increase your tax by $17.10? Last night I went home, I was hungry, so I decided to stop and get something to eat. I made the mistake of calling, and my adult son, 28 years old, said, grab me a sandwich. So I stopped and I grabbed him a sandwich, me a sandwich, 2 French fries, $27. And I thought, boy, if I just wouldn't have fed the kid, my new tax, I could have covered that. I could have covered that just by not letting him have a Big King bacon burger or whatever that was that he ordered. So it just made me think of Lyra, when she walked in with her McDonald's. I just laughed. I was like, $27 to stop at a fast food restaurant now. So when I saw those numbers, Kurt, I was kind of like, hey, that's kind of doable because we're all in this together, right? When one wins, we all win. So
after the 25th, if you finalize the bond language and it is put on the ballot, are you doing any other proactive community-based events?
I sure hope so. We absolutely. Not from us. Unfortunately, we as a school district cannot do that, but there will be a group. If you're interested, let Alexandra know or give Brian Geelan an email. We had over 300 people saying they were interested in helping and support this. And so based on last night, there will be a Vote Yes group, a PAC, if you will, political action committee, that'll go around and do their thing.
Knowing how communities can be, and when you have a large community where a lot of people also send their kids to other schools who might not be as interested, or I hope that they're all open-minded enough to
Yep.
recognize that this lifts everybody up.
A rising tide lifts all boats in this, absolutely. So yeah, share with your circle of influence. Plan on way more communication as we land on those concepts in particular. So with that, Elizabeth, I'm going to give you the last words.
Thank you guys for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. There are so many options for what we can do within the school district, and we really want to make sure that what we choose to do is a reflection of what the community and our schools and our families want, and our teachers.
Yeah.
Schools as opposed to teachers. It's what they want. We don't want to just do what the 7 of us or 15 of us can do.
Right.
We really, really appreciate your input. We appreciate you asking about our earlier thinking, because that was really important for us.
I'll put one in my yard.
Perfect. Awesome. Nope. Yeah. Thanks for engaging with us. Have a great rest of your evening. Nice job. Thanks for being here. You show up.